The way that Dr. Orion Taraban, PsyD, the psychologist from PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology, I think he's updated now. He's going more by his name, but he makes really great analogies and he's so knowledgeable in the way that he's able to think about and frame various different subjects. It reminds me a lot of how I think, which is fascinating. It's refreshing because he's very sharp. I'm not saying that I can necessarily consider myself to be super sharp or anything like that, but I'm not so naive or self-deprecating to not realize that I'm a great communicator. And one of the things that I was just listening, I didn't finish it because it just really just inspired me. He was giving an example. So he's talking to a guy, I think it's the YouTube is Real Help for Men. I'll have to look at it again, what exactly it is. And he, there was this thing about that people would never really, in their right minds, trade down in a relationship or go for something of lower value. And then the facilitator, again, I don't know the guy's name. I tend to listen to a lot of these things while I'm driving, and I don't really get to look. And I'm really paying attention to the content, not necessarily the characters. And so I'm only just familiar with Dr. Taraban because I binge listen to his stuff lately while I'm driving. But the guy said, well, I know people who, they're with a woman who, for everybody else objectively, thinks that they're kind of messed up, basically. And I'm paraphrasing this, but the core understanding of what I'm getting at is correct. He says, so they look at this woman as a train wreck, and people ask, really, her? Why are you with her? She has all these issues. And then she ends up, the relationship goes to crap, and then she ends up sleeping with and hooking up with a guy who's a homeless criminal drug addict. And so Dr. Taraban, very astutely, which I enjoy, and it's also going to lead to something else, talks about how, value is in the eye of the beholder. It's like, the cat is the one who decides what the best milk is. You think you're putting out the most delicious creamy milk for the neighborhood cat, but the cat is going to decide which one is best, and that's just how people are. And so he said the same thing about, he gave an analogy. This is what I love about it, because I use analogies like this all the time. But he says, think about it in the job market. He says, somebody might take a job and other people will look at them and say, that job, what are you doing? It pays 3 times less. Again, the numbers and the quantities that I'm talking about, I don't remember what they said. I understand the point that they're making, right? So when you look at this episode with Dr. Taraban, you'll see what I'm saying. But he says, and so people will look at that and say, why are you that job? Why are you taking that job? It's, it pays 3 times less. It's this and that. And he says the value is in the eye of the job seeker, the job taker, right? The employee. It could be that it has a short commute. It could be they get to work at home. It could be that it's a low stress environment. All those things. And that is 100, right? 100%. I don't know how many people, when you think about it, you could agree with that on all these points, right? In relationships, it's in the eye of the person who's choosing the person they want to be with, regardless of what other people around might see. I was with a woman who I was totally into for a long time. And I remember once I made a comment, I was like, oh man, she's so cute. And this guy looked at me and made a face like, really, bro? But to me, she was super cute. But and when I think about it now, I still think she's very attractive. But I do see that she's not very objectively attractive to a lot of other people, the way that she carries herself. I can understand where other people might come from. But she was also she's like the friendliest, most pleasant, most agreeable, just really sweet, but also challenging. And, it was a really great relationship. So I get that on that front, but she's not a train wreck. That's the other thing. I was in the relationship. I was the one that was more the train wreck than anything else, which is why the relationship ended. Which, if I'm being honest, which is why probably most of my relationships ended. And even though I didn't know it at the time that I was the issue. I thought that everything was hunky-dory, but now I realize, where my mindset was and everything. But this is not about that. I can beat up on my stupid relationship foibles later. But the other thing, so on all fronts, I can see how that's true, right? In the relationship part, right? And from other people might see, and I know in Dr. Taraban's example, the guy was talking about the person being a train wreck, like, they have all these issues from the past. But it also tracks to what people perceive as being attractive. And that's why I made that example of my own relationship from previously. And then in the job market, it's the same thing. And so I made a podcast recording not too long ago. I published it. I don't know where it is. I'm not sure if it's on One Person Enterprise or which one. These days, I'm just publishing on whichever one I feel like it most appropriately will go to. Mostly the ones that are being pushed out to YouTube, which is the Dr. Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander podcast. I just gave it that name. A lot of that's for SEO reasons. There's also the Uniquilibrium podcast, where I'm putting most of them. Then there's the Capoeira podcast from my martial arts system, and there's the MC Narcissist podcast, which it actually gets published from 613 Records, Red Coin Studios. And what other one is out there? Oh, World Reading Club is being pushed out to YouTube as well, and I think there might be another one. I'm not sure. But it's because all of my ideas are converging. I've been talking about this a long time, that really everything that I've been doing all this time, and I didn't realize it, really all fall under the categories of healthy living and self-defense. I'm a healthy living and self-defense coach. I'm a healthy living and self-defense instructor. All of the other things I do are supplementary to that, whether it be my PhD in metaphysical sciences, my ordination as a minister, or my clinical hypnosis, my degree in clinical hypnosis as a master hypnotist. All of that serves my martial arts, including the martial arts themselves of boxing, submission wrestling, capoeira, and then also my nutritional expertise. So, but in the job market, so I made a podcast not too long ago, I don't remember exactly where it was, as I was saying, that was related to this idea, and this is why I was inspired to make this recording. Because a lot of people might say, and before that, there's also one that's even more directly related to that, which is years ago, back in 2021, I was finally able to get back to the United States from China because COVID happened. My wife went to New York, she passed away, and that was in October of 2019. COVID happened, so I got stuck in China, and I couldn't get out because the tickets were prohibitively expensive, as well as my flights kept on getting canceled, as well as just a lot of flights weren't going out and connecting. It was just very difficult to get out. So I finally got out of China. I was there for 5 years, and I finally got out in 2021 and went back to California. But then I decided to I had some really odd things were happening, like crazy people, actually crazy people were getting on the bus and screaming things. One lady was yelling at me about talking to the bus driver about having been in China, and she was yelling about how they're the enemy and all this stuff like that. And then just things I saw on the streets. It looked like California had turned into like a post-apocalyptic environment. It was really like a very surreal scene, how things just spilled out into the streets. I mean, I know everything changes, but it was very, very different than how I had perceived it before I left. And so I just got turned around and got back on another bus going back the other way, went to the airport and got tickets to come to Virginia Beach, where my sister had retired from the Navy after 20 years. So, be right back. So I turned around, went back, got on the bus. The buses were free at the time, the whole pandemic thing, and the buses were running free. So I got one airport, jumped off, turned around, went back to the airport, spent some more money, got tickets, Virginia Beach, sister, 20 years, retired, Navy. And it was just, I felt like it would be stable and I could just kind of get things together. I don't know what I was really even thinking. I don't know. Maybe it would have been better if I would have just went to California. I don't know. Who knows? I'm here now, right? So then, at first, that was September 4th, 2021, and on September 11th, 2021, I landed a job at the gym that my sister worked out at, and I started working at the front desk as a front desk staff, as a greeter. And people who knew about that, like there were some people I was talking to back from that I knew from California and other places, and they're like, "What are you doing? You're a personal trainer. How are you working at the front desk of the gym and and all this stuff like that?" Like it was beneath me, and I just wanted to get started. I don't like to depend on anybody for anything. I like to cooperate with people, but so I did that, and that was, people were saying stuff about that. But while I was there, I immediately got a course for personal training certification, and by November, I had finished a group, the personal training certification, and then I finished the group fitness one, and then by about January, I was a personal trainer. And I didn't really like it that much. I worked there for a little while as a personal trainer, I think maybe until October of the next year, so for about 10 months. And in that time, now I didn't have a car, and so I was riding my bicycle, which was only 2 miles away from where my sister's house was. And then one of the assistant general manager, he told me about somebody, which was another member I didn't know at the time, but who needed somebody to work security at a club, and he says he thought of me. So he gave me the guy's number. I called him up, and I started working at this club. I had one of my younger brothers, the one who actually gave me the bicycle. He's obsessed with, for some reason, buying and selling bicycles and collecting firearms. And he gave me the bicycle, but he also, the first night, because I wanted to be on time, he dropped me off there, and I said I'll figure out my way home. I was even willing, actually, to walk back, and even though it was going to take me 5 hours, but I had been doing a lot of walking and riding. I didn't care. I just wanted to start the job. But my sister and other people were saying, "What? It's only paying," because I remember at the time it was like maybe $15 an hour or something like that. It's only paying $15 an hour. The thing is that it was cash, right? It was so-called under the table. But to me, I was just thinking it's just more money, and what else am I going to be doing? Like, I mean, sleeping? I don't know, right? I just figured, as a personal trainer, there's not steady hours. You're out there. You have to sell and get your own clients, and I was doing pretty well with it. I mean, I had clients before I even got my personal training certification, and before I was even in the system to work as a personal trainer, because I was just very personable, and I talked to a lot of people at the front desk. So that was not a problem for me. But again, it's this idea like Dr. Tara Brown was talking about. Where did that come from? I feel like I'm in, like, this is like some simulation type stuff. That fire engine was just sitting in the middle of the road, no lights or anything, and then it's like I came around the corner, and then it just lit up and started going like it. Like, what was it? It was like frozen in time. Like, what was that all about? That was weird. No, I'm not that crazy. I'm just kind of playing with the what you call it, spontaneity, the improvisation of things happening. All right, so back on point. And so, but people were saying things to me about like, oh, it's not paying that job, But for one thing, I'm very much a loner, even though I like to cooperate with people and work with people a lot. And I had clients that I was talking to at the gym and everything like that. I like being at bars and clubs as security or as like a doorman, because there's like this very interesting surface socializing that I get to do, where I get to be, a fly on the wall, and I get to greet people and talk to them and like have this very short, patter and just talk to people, and I get to meet and talk to a lot of people coming in and out. And it's really it's one of the ways that I've built up my my social skills, which I didn't really have that many of, because a lot of people growing up, like, especially, since I started having girlfriends when I was about 15 or 16, I never had to, I was never a chaser. Like, for some, well, I'm not going to say for some, also I'm not naive or stupid, but women would just come to me all the time. Like, they would just come at me all the time. I've been a musician, so I play guitar, and I'm a vocalist, and I'm also a martial artist and an athlete, and I write poems and stuff like that. So I was doing all that stuff. So I know that those things are attractive, especially to you know, the girls at the age that I was at the time in high school. So I know why. I was physically fit. Everybody thought that I was really good looking and hot and all this other stuff like that. So I get that. So I never really had to build up any skills or game or anything like that. But working at the clubs and stuff like that, the door helped me to meet a lot of people and just really start to learn how to talk and be a little bit more, quick on my feet. And so to the point of what Dr. Taravan was talking about, the value is in the eye of the beholder, right? And so even though the job, and plus, here's what's interesting. The gym that I was working at started me off at, I don't even remember how much it was. I don't think it was that much. It couldn't have been. I definitely know it was less than what I was making out in California, which was like a minimum of $25 an hour for the group classes, and then I went up to $33, and then I started making $100 an hour. But I remember whatever I was making as a personal trainer wasn't that much more than working at the door at this place. And even if it was a little bit more, there were still, taxes and all that stuff like that. So to me, it was more about the value of the gig, of doing it, more than the pay. I was getting to be out, and it's an opportunity for me, like I said, to socialize, and also in a low pressure type of way, because people had to go through me. I didn't really have to approach people. So, now that I think about it, it's possible that I just it puts myself in a position for people to come to me, which is interesting. Now that I think about it more, I just had a realization. That's the same thing as being a personal trainer. It's also the same thing as, well, I'm gonna have to think about that for a second. So I'm just thinking about if there were other things like that. Well, for the most part, so the whole point is that the security gig, being a personal trainer, being a group fitness instructor, those are all things where people were coming to me. The classes were there, and people were coming to interact with me. I wasn't having to go out. I mean, even in personal training, I remember too. What's really interesting, now I'm going off on these tangents, right? But they're related, because now I'm thinking about my own personal experience. But the way that I recruited clients wasn't the same way as we were told to do, and it's why I started to amass clients really, really at a rapid rate, to the point where even once, one of the fitness managers at one of the first gyms I worked at, Bodies in Motion in California, where I first got my certification. At first she was flirting with me, and I didn't realize it. I'm also one of these people where these things go over my head, because I remember very clearly the first time when we were interviewing, she's like, well, I like what I see, and and it was just so funny, because then when I thought about it, and I think about the person that she married, who were similar, so there's similar things about us. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give away too many details, but it was just funny how that went down. But then she actually later, because I was amassing clients so quickly, and some of her clients, which they had every right to, were coming to train with me. And it was because of the way that I was training. And now that I think about it, it could have been for other reasons. But people would come to me as a trainer. And one of the ways that would happen, as I was getting to, is that while trainers were encouraged to walk the floor and go up to people while they were working out, and, maybe give them some advice or ask them if they needed help, I would just pace around the gym like a shark. And I would just do various different things. Like I would wipe off the equipment, or I would rack weights, or I would just walk by people and say hi. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't offer them any services. I wouldn't sell anything. But then people would inevitably come up to me. So I actually, now it's funny, because I'm realizing that this was just a pattern of my behavior, that I just operated in such a way to have people come to me. And I wonder what that is. I wonder, now I'm starting to, okay, I'm gonna have to do a whole other recording about this. But but now I'm just going to finish this point about what I originally started talking about Dr. Taraban, and just get to it. The value is in the eye of the beholder. And this is what I did with these various different jobs. That's why it struck a chord with me. What I'm doing is I'm validating what he says through my personal experience, because I'm starting to find that a lot of things that Dr. Taraban says deeply resonate with me. I don't, maybe this is the way I'm saying this is okay for now, but I think he's the most correct person that I've listened to their advice online so far. Like he's really on top of his game on a lot of things. And again, this is like confirmation bias. Of course, he's saying things that I already agree with, that I already believe in. I know that. I know people. I understand those different nuances of things like that here. But when you hear what I'm saying, objectively, you should be able to understand that what I'm saying, it makes sense, and these are true, right? So the examples I'm making, which resonates with me, is that value is in the eye of the beholder, which is why I took that job, and also why when the same person called me up again for security, I took another gig, and I'm working with him to this day. And it's only one night a week. Coming up in May, I'll be doing 3 nights in a row, but it's sporadic. I have one regular, so it pulls me out of my whole gig working and all the other freelancing and independent contracting stuff I'm doing throughout the day. So, and I like it because it gives me like a solid thing, but then, I have all this other variety, and it's also paying more than it was before. So it's a raise from what it was before. So the interesting thing is that not only in that case that it was the value to me more than just the money, because of what it was and my whole socializing, and just the fact that I like to be at the parties but not be in the parties, right? What does that saying go? You're in the world but you're not of it. That's how I like to be in a lot of situations. And the other thing is also, I just mentioned like gig work, freelancing, independent contracting. A lot of people will look down on certain things that I do and wonder why I'm doing it. Like, for example, doing personal shopping with Instacart. And Dr. Taraban even mentioned this, flexible hours. That is a big thing to me. Even though the income is not exactly steady, I know what I have to do to get to a certain number. So for me, I know how to make it steady. Like, for example, if my goal is to earn $200 a day, I know that I can do that, and I know exactly how to do that. And it's been reliable because I've tested it over and over again. And if I don't do that, it's just because I haven't done the things that are required to get there. And now with doing a security gig, one of those days, I don't have to do as much as I would need to do to get to that number, because this is paying me. So you see what I mean? And so there's other little things that I can pull in here and there, and then sales from my books, and then ad share revenue from this, and teaching martial arts classes. And then I'm going to find the mix, the blend that works best for me. And that's really what it's all about. The value has to do with who's doing it. But a lot of people are just really stuck in these like industrial age, like 9 to 5, and just these weird concepts. The world has changed a lot, and we don't have to, like, I'm doing hybrid work. Like, really, I've been doing hybrid work for a long time, because when I started teaching martial arts and being a personal trainer back in 1998. When I got a certification for $99 online from this company called IFA, International Fitness Association, which is no longer around. And I started teaching people capoeira on the intramural fields of University of Miami, because my girlfriend went to school there, and I met her on the set of a movie called Any Given Sunday, where I was an extra, and which was one of my first foots in the door into the entertainment industry. So I was working in the entertainment industry, doing work as background. Then I started teaching people martial arts and personal training. Then I started working in the art department, doing props and special effects and music videos. And then I was also doing security work at nightclubs. So I was doing those three things. So I was already doing a lot of hybrid stuff as an independent contractor, working on film and TV, being an independent, sole proprietor, doing personal training and teaching martial arts, and then doing security gigs like that. So it's something that I'm used to, and the value in it is that I don't get bored. These are gigs that tend to pay a lot more money than average for what I'm doing, especially in the entertainment industry. and also personal training and teaching martial arts, especially when I'm doing it on my own outside of a gym. And it's a very low stress because I don't have to report to the same cubicle. It's so crazy because, you know, the places that I go shopping, a lot of times I go in all these places and I see the same people in there every time I'm in there, and I just look at it. I'm like, for me, I can't imagine doing it. It's like so hard. Like, I'm not too fancy to say that I wouldn't if I absolutely had to. Like when I worked at the front desk of the gym when I first got back to the United States, and you know, I'm not saying it's beneath me, right? Like, why would it be? Like, why would earning a living and doing what you have to do to get on your feet like be beneath anybody? I mean, that's kind of weird, but I would rather not. But to me, like it's difficult to imagine deciding to do that before looking at other options. I don't know, man. But like I said, the world has changed, and people need to upgrade their mindsets. Just the things that people criticize, that they don't understand. So to the point, let me finish this off to what Dr. Taraban was saying. Yeah, value is in the eye of the beholder. You know, the value of a job is in the person who's taking the gig. The value of a relationship is in the person who is choosing to, you know, to hook up or date somebody. It's we who are choosing it, and it's them who are choosing it, and it's a mutual choosing. So I think, yeah, I mean, that's it. But now there's more that I have to go into about this whole idea of people coming to me. I'm going to have to do another recording about that. This one went way longer than I thought it would. I am Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander.